My name is Ryan, and this is Rules in the Family. And today I'm going to be talking about the best board games for 5-year-olds. Now, maybe you are a big fan of modern board gaming and are excited to maybe get your kids into the hobby, enjoying it with them a little bit. Or maybe you are someone who doesn't know that they've made any new kids board games since Monopoly, Clue, Risk, and Battleship. In which case, I've got great news for you as of the golden age of kids board games that we are living in. There are so many great options out there that have even come out in the last 5 years that are worth being aware of. And playing board games with kids is such a great activity. I will preach from the rooftops about the benefits of how it's such good quality time, how it engages their brain and learning in so many good ways. It fosters a lot of creativity. So good on you for, looking up a topic like this and looking. I think it is definitely worthwhile to explore some of these games with the kids. And fortunately, there's just some really good ones now that you can enjoy playing a lot as well. Now, I have 2 kids at the moment. Actually, I have a third on the way. My oldest is 5, and my 5-year-old and I have probably played more board games together than most 5-year-old and father on the planet. And through that, we've done a lot of searching out of new games that we would enjoy, and kind of finding our favorites. And so that's what I'm here to kind of recommend, is based on our experiences. Now, the title of the video is Best Games for 5-year-olds. You should hear that as best games to introduce somewhere in the 5 to 7 age range. Obviously, all kids are different. I'm also erring on the side of kind of introducing games early to push kids a little bit. So you can use your best judgment on whether, your child or whoever you might be playing with is ready for these. However, this is actually a continuation of a series I've been doing, and I have a video of top board games for 4-year-olds, for 3-year-olds, and for 2-year-olds. So if it feels like the ones here are a little bit too complex, I will link those other ones below. The other thing about those older videos is I kind of order them by when it might make sense to introduce the games, but many of these games continue to work well for older ages, or, maybe you have older siblings, that would maybe be involved. And so honestly, that 4-year-old list I have, I would recommend pretty much all of those games also for 5-year-olds. So you could think of that as an extended list of this and maybe check that out for some other recommendations. But these are the ones that I kind of am continuing off of, that are games that maybe could be introduced around this age and that we have had a lot of fun playing together. And I've got 7 of them to talk about. So let's jump in with my first recommendation, which is Andor, the family fantasy game. This is a great cooperative adventure game that I think for a kid's game gives that feeling of like a big game. Like, especially if you yourself are a board gamer, maybe your kids have seen you playing games. It's fun to bring out a game that makes the kids feel like they're playing kind of a big game. This is, it's got a lot cool things going on. Really good presentation with this big map, and you're each these kind of adventures going off, and you're working together to complete these quests so that eventually at the end of the game you can cross the river and go save the wolf cubs that are in the cave at the end. And it's got a very kind of exploratory feel, because scattered about the entire map in every single space are these face down like discovery tokens. And whenever you stop on a space, you can review it and pick it up. So there's this fun of just like, what am I going to get? What am I going to find? Sometimes you have to find specific things. Or, we need to get some wood. We need to find wood so that we can go complete this task. And so that's a lot of fun. I find it also, it's very fun. And actually, this is fun of this age in general, is you start to see the kids have kind of these aha moments when it comes to strategy. They start to kind of see, oh, I could do this differently and it would, help me have a better chance. And it's very fun to see the light bulb go off for these kids. And I see that a little bit in this game. There's these wells that are around the board that if you stop on a well, you can actually get back some of your little sun tokens that are basically your how many actions you can do in a given round. And so, the kids will realize, oh, wait, I could go do this thing I want to do. But if I actually detour slightly and go stop at this well, I'll actually have more sun tokens than I would have had when I go this way. And so it's got some kind of optimization opportunities for them to kind of figure out. And, you're trying to ultimately complete all these tasks before the dragon reaches the city. So there's kind of this pressure of the dragon moving down the track. I find it just all comes together really, really well in a kid's game. This one is maybe a little bit more to learn up front, like you as the parent reading the rule book, especially if you've played a lot of modern games. That said, once you get it down and start playing, it is very smooth. It is very like simple to understand once it kind of clicks. And so we've had a lot of fun with this one. And it is the first one that I recommend. Second, we have another cooperative game. Cooperative games generally are great with, kids, families. This one is leaning into kind of a ghost fighting haunted mansion theme. This is Ghost Fightin' Treasure Hunters. This one really was a slam dunk in our family because my son kind of had an interest in this like ghost fighting theme already. We'd been playing the old Luigi's Mansion video game together, and he really liked that theme. So that really, and that's something that's true of kids games in general. Anytime you can hit on a theme that the kid is interested in, that's definitely going to be a benefit. But this is kind of I would say if you've ever played a game like Pandemic or heard of kind of some of these cooperative non-kids games, it's kind of in that lane of trying to kind of mitigate things that are happening around the board. There's ghosts appearing in the mansion. You need to make sure not too many ghosts come out, otherwise you will lose, but you're trying to get all of the treasures out of the mansion. So there's always this tension of like fighting the ghosts so that, the lose condition doesn't happen, but we also need to be working to get the treasures out, finding them and carrying them out so that we can win. And it just works really smoothly. You roll the die that's going to give you like your movement for that. You reveal a card that says like where ghosts are going to appear. It's got a really nice kind of basic mode and then advanced mode. So in the basic mode, you really are just like, rolling that dice and getting it. You can get the treasures in any order. But then, my son and I have really been enjoying the advanced mode where now there's cards that like certain doors could lock at different times, which makes the mansion feel a little more dynamic. Or you might, you actually have to get all the treasures out in order. So if we find treasure number 4, well, you can't carry that out until we get treasures 1 through 3. So this one was a huge hit for us. I see it as a very good stepping stone to some of the kind of non-kids cooperative games like Pandemic, some of these family weight cooperative games. This is like a really perfect stepping stone, and honestly, just a fun game. That's something, especially as we get into this category of 5-year-olds, is you're really bumping into games that are quite fun for the adults to play. Like, this isn't a far cry from a game that you could play almost with a group of just adults and have a good time. So definitely recommend Ghost Fightin' Treasure Hunters. Next, we have our first non-cooperative recommendation, and this is one that is based off of one of the greatest family games of all time, which is Ticket to Ride. This is Ticket to Ride First Journey. And Ticket to Ride, the full version, already is a fairly simple game, but there's maybe a couple things that make it a little harder to introduce to younger kids. The First Journey edition really helps to kind of tune it to cater more to these younger kids. The main ways that it does that is instead of names of cities, the locations now are all just pictures. So like when they get their ticket that says you need to get from this city to this city, they can be like, I need to get from the whale to I forget what's in this mask thing or this statue. And they can just visually see that on the board. It also simplifies, instead of being able to take cards, complete routes, and take new destination tickets, they remove that take destination tickets decision, which simplifies it a little bit. It also helps, because that was always kind of a push your luck decision in the original game, where it's like, ooh, I could take more objectives before I've even completed the ones that I have. Those types of push your luck, shoot the moon decisions are kind of hard for a young kid to make effectively. So I think that was a good decision, even though it's very fun in Ticket to Ride. I think it was a good decision to reel that back here. And you're left with something that still feels very Ticket to Ride, but just lowers the barrier a little bit more, that kids can get really into it. I think this one also feels very different from a lot of other kids games, like just the mechanisms. It's kind of card set collection and then, planning ahead. I need to connect from here to here. So this is the shortest route and these are the colors of cards I'm going to need to collect to do that. Just are really good in the way they work the kid's brain. That's maybe a little different than a lot of the other kids games they have played up to this point. And naturally, it's a really good stepping stone to get to Ticket to Ride, which Ticket to Ride, excellent family game and has a lot of expansion maps and content. So that's one that could be a very natural kind of next step if they feel like they've mastered this one. Next, we have a game that actually has been out for quite a long time. I don't know if this originally came out in the 80s or the 90s. And the original edition is called Labyrinth. However, I will say there are actually many editions of Labyrinth, and this is where you kind of have the advantage of potentially leaning into the interest of your child. So in my case, my son was very much into the Super Mario universe, and there is a Super Mario Labyrinth edition. So that was a great pick for us and definitely amplified his interest in the game. But he really took to this one. It's a kind of tricky spatial puzzle of this labyrinth, this maze, where each turn you get to push a piece in, and it's going to shift all the tiles in that, row or column, which is going to change the connections of the maze and how things, so you're kind of trying to visualize, like, how is it going to change the maze? Because I want to change it in a way that'll help me get to the objects that are on my cards, because I'm trying to get all the things on my cards and then get back to my starting place to win the game. This is really good practice in like visualizing how things will change. Like, it works a different muscle in your brain. And let me tell you, this is a game that you loop in adults and they will have a hard time with it. Like it's like, ooh, this is tricky. Like, how do I push this to do this? So definitely expect it to feel maybe a little challenging right away of how you manipulate this puzzle to get the results you want. But I can speak from experience that my son has gotten very, very good at this game and has kind of learned the little tricks of how you might need to line things up to kind of work towards connecting something kind of in a bigger picture. This also is one, and something that I like a lot of times in kids games, is when there's an easy way to like handicap the game so that the adult can still play fully to win, but the game is still even. Some kids games, that's just natural that it'll be pretty even because of the introduction of luck elements. But sometimes, like this is an example, there's a lot of skill in this game, but an easy way to handicap it is basically the kids all get to have their 6 or however many cards face up. They know everything they have to get and they can get it in any order. Whereas I, as the adult, have my 6 cards in a stack and only can see the top card. And I have to go get that one. And then I get to reveal my next card. And I have to go get that one next. And so that does a really good job of kind of evening the playing field. Obviously, if you needed 2 more, you could like give more cards to the adults to tune it more. But we're now to the point where my son and I are pretty even if we play that way. And yeah, like I said, like I would highly recommend seeking out the thematic version. I think there's a Disney one. I think there's a Pokemon one. Like if there's a theme that appeals to you and there's an edition of it. Otherwise, the original is like kind of nice, just fantasy theme. But it's definitely something worth looking into if this one interests you. My next recommendation, I'm back to cooperative games. There's a lot of really solid cooperative games at this category. This one is called Kraken Attack. You all are taking on the roles of these kid pirates that are trying to protect their ship from the Kraken. And it's just got really solid mechanisms here of every round you're rolling dice to kind of determine how the tentacles of the Kraken are moving closer to the ship and potentially breaking, the walls of the ship, which once a wall is breaking down, now if it hits in that row again, it's going to make a hole in your ship, which is ultimately how you lose. But on a player's turn, they're going to have a couple cards in front of them that have icons that are basically what actions they could use if they play that card. And so you might have one that's a sword and a cannon. Well, a sword lets you hit something in your section that's right next to the ship, whereas a gun would be 2 spaces away from the ship and a cannon would be 3 spaces away from the ship. So it's always this puzzle of, okay, where can I move on my turn to use a card to most effectively fight off the Kraken or potentially repair the ship? And then you get to replenish your hands. There's always like kind of a small amount of options that you have, but there's a lot of room here for kids to kind of figure out the strategic play. Like, where can I move and which card can I use? Or what order do I do my actions? Do I hit here and then move and do this? There's a lot of room for that discovery of kind of strategy within this cooperative game. And then the game has a really nice escalation as it goes on and the Kraken kind of gets closer to coming on the board. You start rolling more and more dice, which means that the game is getting more and more challenging because the dice are what move the Kraken and get it closer to your ship. So we've had a lot of fun with this one. It's just another in that category. I feel like there's just some really great stepping stone cooperative games for kids that have been released in recent years, and I think Kraken Attack is definitely one of the better ones. Next, we have a game that is very different from pretty much any other game in my kids game collection. This is a way of bringing kind of the Where's Waldo search and find element into a board game, and actually in a cooperative board game, which I find works very well. It's got these fun sheets that have these kind of picture of Where's Waldo illustration of all this stuff going on, and everybody's going to get their own, board that has that. But all of this is actually printed on like a clear sheet that lifts up, and it's on a black background. And so what that means is when you look at it, it's very hard to see everything because everything is dark. But then you get this cool little flashlight. It's got a very fun gimmick here of you have this flashlight piece that you'll probably see pictures of here that'll make it more clear than what I'm saying. But at the end of the flashlight, it has a white circle on that long piece that you're holding. And by sliding that between the black background and the clear image, you now have a white circle that's revealing the image because now that's on a white background instead of a black background. So it's this very fun effect of you're moving the flashlight and you can kind of only see where the flashlight is currently pointing. And so the way the game is played is we're going to flip a card and it's going to have some character on it. And it turns out that everybody's board has that character in it many times. Like every character is in every scene many times. And you're going to start a timer. And now everybody is searching with their flashlight through their scene and trying to count how many they find of that particular character. Once the time is up, everybody's going to use their little dial to say, I found 4, I found 3. And then you get to review and see how many they actually were. And as long as you didn't go over, meaning you accidentally double counted something or cheated, you then get a certain amount of movement on the track based on like how many of them that you found. But then there's this moon piece on the track that's going to be moving, and it moves more if there were more that you could have found. And if you're playing on the harder levels, there's like a die you roll that it could move further. And the goal of the game is to not let the moon catch the players too many times, and you have to kind of survive through, I think it's maybe 5 rounds. It's got a nice balancing piece. Like suppose you're playing with a group with like, you've got some adults that are maybe pretty good at this, but you also maybe have a young kid that's like not great at it, is having fun, but maybe isn't going to like be finding most of them each time. After you all move on the track, you always have the option to move the like first person back to move the last person up. So it kind of helps keep the group together and kind of helps the person that's the best at the game help the person that's maybe lagging behind a little bit. But this one has been a lot of fun. I think it's a great pick, especially if you're building out kind of kids game collection. If you like having a bunch of different games, this one feels very different. And you may know if this is something that interests your kid, if they've ever done something like the Where's Waldo books or these types of search and find things, then this one is like, if they're into that, then this is like the home run recommendation for that. And it's nice that it's a team game. It keeps there's a lot of, that is the benefit of cooperative games, is you don't have to run into the kind of competitiveness and kids getting mad because of that. That said, I would make sure you mix in some cooperative games, because that is part of some really good skills to be learning, is how to handle that disappointment or just be a good sport in these games. But there are a lot of really good cooperative kids games. Speaking of cooperative kids games, I guess this list was a little cooperative heavy. My last recommendation is Zombie Kids Evolution. Now, if you are into the modern board gaming scene, you may have heard of a style of game called a legacy game. It was actually introduced by Risk Legacy probably over a decade ago. And this was kind of this novel concept that what if permanent changes are made to the game based on what's happening in your games. Like maybe you're adding stickers to the board. Maybe you're writing something, there's secret envelopes that get unlocked as the game goes on. This is kind of in that lane and is probably the best first one for like kids experiencing this. It starts out as a very simple cooperative game of you're these kids defending this school from zombies. It's very fun art and lighthearted. Like it's not some like really intense theme here. But it's a really quick game too. I mean, you're playing this in like 10, 15 minutes maybe to play a round of it. But then whenever you finish the game, you get to go onto the rule book and add a brain sticker just for playing a game. And then potentially these trophy stickers if you were able to complete certain objectives or certain missions. And as you get stickers, you're going to start hitting checkpoints where you get to unlock, you get to open secret envelope number 1. And inside of that, like, it's going to have something that changes the game, or, you might get new rules, you might get new like player abilities. And so this is just a very fun shared experience for the group, that excitement. It makes the between the game almost as fun as the game, because and then you want to play again because it's like, oh, we got this new thing, we want to try it. I would definitely say if you get this game with your kids, expect that this might be the only game they want to play over and over and over, because that pull of unlocking new stuff is really, really strong. The other really nice thing about how it's designed is that the complexity is being added slowly over time. And while it doesn't become a really complex game, like I would say even like the final form here is no more complex than some of the cooperative games I already talked on this list. But it does allow you to let it kind of grow with the kid and not have all the complexity up front. And so they kind of understand the game really well. And then it adds one new thing and they can kind of just understand that one new thing. And another nice thing is, unlike maybe some games that are in the campaign legacy style, this is one that once it's done, you have a playable game. Like, you can keep playing kind of the final version of the game, and it's just a good cooperative game at that point. So very fun experience, that I wouldn't be surprised if you go quickly through a lot of the like unlocking content just because it's so compelling, but then you're left with a game that you can continue to come back to in the future. Hey, you can check down in the description for links to any of these games, as well as links to some of my videos for other younger age categories, and also a link to our website that has our full kids game recommendation guide across all ages in a written format. If you like board games, consider subscribing to the channel. You can check out a couple other videos that we have here, and I will see you in the next one.